Hello. I'm Aksu and I'm talking about Aumakua interactions. Uh, Aumakua interactions are interesting because it's a wildly popular icebreaker and it still has weird interaction with the errata text and it's quite difficult to understand for new players. I actually got this idea after going to a local tournament in the nearby city and I misplayed my Aumakua and got illegal game actions from it. So I think this could be helpful for some new players and maybe some experienced player get some fun out of the more weird interactions in the game with Aumakua. So first we can talk about what is actually Aumakua. Aumakua is this AI virus icebreaker that gets extra strength for each virus counter on it. Notice that in the official card, it reads whenever you expose a card or access cards and do not steal any of them or trash any of them. It gets a 1 virus counter, but in the errata text that is shown in the netrunner DB, it actually reads whenever you finish breaching a server, if you did not steal or trash any accessed cards, place 1 virus token on this program. This is notable because of the change to the as running steps and timing structure of run. There's nowadays a successful phase where the runner breaches the attacked server. It is not just the accessing cards, it's actually about the breaching of the server after the run has been declared successful. So, the first question is about the exposing part of the card. Uh, so here we have 3 cards. Falsified credentials that gives exposes a card on the remote server. Find the truth that reveals the top card whenever you make a first successful run of the turn. And reflection that reveals a card after you check out. So which of these actually gives Aumakua a virus counter? Correct answer is A, because actually Aumakua does not care about revealing cards or setting them aside or any other thing that reveals the cards. It just cares about the text expose cards. So both of these other cards do not actually give Aumakua anything, but falsified credentials does. Then we're going to some game examples. So in this example, the runner is running on server 1 and passes through this ice with Aumakua. And before the run is declared successful, the corporation uses the spin doctor's ability and removes itself from the game, shuffling 2 cards back into the R&D. Still, the runner continues and makes a successful run. How many virus counters does Aumakua end up with after the run? Correct answer is 1, because Aumakua does not actually care about accessing cards at all. It just cares about the successful breach step. So here the spin doctor goes away. It still gives a card. It also would give you a card if, for example, you run archives that is empty and do not access anything. Uh, this is different, for example, to Hoshiko, where Hoshiko does not actually flip over if you're not accessing a card in empty archives. Talking about archives, the next thing about is virus, and the runner runs the archives and accesses the virus that purchase the virus tokens. How many virus tokens does the runner end up with on Aumakua after the run? Correct answer B1. Because Aumakua actually gets the run virus counter after the run. So virus completes the purge and then you get the virus token. This is notable, for example, if on the remote server there were a border control. You could first run archives and then run here instantly, catching the corporation off guard. Then the interaction that actually fooled me in the tournament, diversion funds. Here the runner just plays diversion funds, there's no ice or anything, and uses the ability to not access cards and steal the money. How many counters does Aumakua get from this situation? Answer is A, 0, because in the most cards that read instead of accessing cards are reading nowadays as instead of breaching do something. So this replaces the breach effect nowadays. Quite a similar card is the counter surveillance, where the runner has 3 tags and uses the counter surveillance R&D, accessing nothing but eyes or something. And so does counter surveillance give the Aumakua counter in this example? It does not, because similar to doof, counter surveillance actually reads instead of breaching the server, do this. So the accesses do not matter at all. It's just about the breaching step of the run. Next example might be more familiar to startup players, where Virtuoso is actually played at some points. Standard players never see this card. So the mark is on archives, and the runner runs archives, and after from archives they gain nothing, and after that they breach HQ one time and don't steal anything. How many cards do they? How many virus counters does Aumakua end up with in this situation? A correct answer is 2, because actually Virtuoso reads as breach HQ when the run ends. So they runner gains 1 from accessing cards in archives, or making a successful run on archives, and then there is an extra breach on HQ, which gives the other one. Then there are more standard console that still does not see any play, maybe on some partner deck or something. So Mind's Eye has 3 counters on it, and the runner uses the ability on Mind's Eye to access the top card of R&D. And the top card of the R&D is just eyes. So how many counters does Aumakua end up after this situation? Correct answer is B1, because actually Mind's Eye has also been changed to breach R&D. You cannot access cards on the root of R&D during this breach. So the running is not an important part of Aumakua at all. It just is about the breach step. So if old cards read something like access cards or something, it super often is about breaching the R&D or or different situations like that. Then there is an actually popular console called Mo, and the runner runs HQ, accessing an ice, and in the first example trashes some random card from R&D, HQ. Does Aumakua get a counter in that situation? And if the runner accesses a card and actually trashes that card that they are accessing currently from Mo's effect, does Aumakua get a counter from that situation instead? The answer is actually no. Same. In the both situation, Aumakua gets a counter. It's actually important to read that the corp must trash this card, not the runner. So Aumakua cares only about runners trashing cards. So both of these situations actually gives the runner an virus counter to Aumakua. Next card is one eternal card and one of the most popular cards in the game right now. So the runner is using pinhole ring or R&D, and before the run is successful, they're using the paid ability on Hades chart, accessing all cards in archives, and after the run is successful, they use pinhole rings effect to access the project Atlas on the remote, but they cannot steal it because of the pinhole rings effect. How many counters does the runner end up with in this situation? Correct answer is 1, because of the Hades Shard's ability, it actually breaches archives, So the runner gets a 1 counter from there, and after that the pinhole threading is actually, instead of breaching the attack server, you get the access on Project Atlas. So pinhole threading does not actually give one counter to Aumakua, even though you do not steal or trash anything. Next is one of the harder questions in my opinion. There's a chisel, and the runner has some unnamed fracture that they can break the ice wall with. So runner initiates a run on server 1. Chisel gains 1 virus token, and ice wall strength goes to 0. They use the fracture to break the ice wall, and after that they continue to run and make a successful run and access a ganked on the remote server. And then the runner corporation uses the ability on ganked to trash itself, forcing the runner to encounter the ice wall again, where Chisel's ability activates and trashes the ice wall. How many virus tokens does the Aumakua end up in this situation with? Actually, the correct answer is B. Ganked ability trashes itself, so the runner does not interfere with it, and Aumakua gains encounter normally. And Aumakua actually cares about cards that you are accessing when the trashing comes into question. So you are never accessing an ice of the table, so the ice trash does not matter, even though it happens during the breach step. In this situation is also notable that even though the server is completely empty with no ganked or no ice wall or anything, the run has already been considered successful and the breach has already happened. So the effect that happens sometimes with Spin Doctor on an empty table does not happen, and the run still continues, and the breach step happens normally. Then the final question is about a couple of old Eternal cards called Film Critic and Salted Slums. So runner runs HQ and accesses first an asset that they use Salted Slums ability to remove it from the game. And after that they access an agenda that Film Critic actually takes, or Film Critic's ability is used on that. How many counters does Aumakua end up in this situation with? Correct answer 1. Both of these effects are actually replacement effects, and so instead of paying the trash cost, or instead of trashing it, Salted Slums actually removes it from the game. That does not affect Aumakua at all. And Film Critic is actually not considered stealing it, it just adds it on itself. So that does not hurt Aumakua at all as well. So if you got 1 to 2 points, it is the runner installed IP block. It's the nastiest ice you can get with turtle installed. It's super annoying. 3 to 4 points, bulwark. There's some AI hate on that card, but it's also really hard to get through with ice wall, with Aumakua. 5 to 6. If you work enough with your turtle, be good enough friends and give it good enough food, it will get through envelopment, but it's going to be hard. 7 to 8. One of the easier ice for Aumakua. You just run archives once and then start farming through border controls. And if you got the mythical 9 to 10 points, congratulations. The corporation has installed already Rest Gatekeeper, one of the easiest ice just to farm through. The turtle is happy and everything is going well. Yep. So thanks for watching. I thought about making this video because the Aumakua interactions are actually quite interesting and non-intuitive for some people. I've been thinking about making some other videos, so I thought about making a video on Jnet tutorial, making some video that people can get easily stuck in the game with, and I have been thinking about making stuff like game analysis and stuff. One of the ideas is also to make a video about Loki Egg Infusion, trying to learn playing that deck. So if people have any replays or any ideas on what stuff to make, I would gladly hear it.